name's John Acorn. I like to call myself the nature nut. But I gotta admit, in wintertime, I spend a lot of my time here in this very unnatural looking place, the Alberta Grain Terminal in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. The terminal itself, it's an old building. It was built in the 1920s to load grain into rail cars, and it's still used for that purpose. It's been renovated internally, but it still looks the same on the outside. The loading of grain, there's always a little bit of spillage. That attracts pigeons. Huge numbers of pigeons, sometimes 1,000 or more on the building and swirling around in the air here. The pigeons attract falcons. Not just any falcons, the Merlin falcon is a small falcon, only the females are big enough to hunt pigeons, but also prairie falcons and the biggest falcon of all, Gyrfalcons. In turn, those attract another species to the terminal, Homo sapiens, birders and photographers, especially photographers wanting to capture that moment, that dramatic moment when the falcon manages to outfly the very swift and aerobatic pigeons and grab the pigeon prey. The results have been spectacular, and it's such a neat opportunity to get to know these birds. How did this whole phenomenon start?
Well, as far as I know, it all started with Jim Lang, who worked for CN and was up and down the tracks often, and from talking to him, I learned that he started documenting the Gyrfalcons here about 23 years ago. We started to observe them and started to take notes, keeping track of when they arrived in the season, but also when they arrived and departed on a daily basis, and he's been doing that for all of these years. And I think in a couple of years he told me that the Gyrfalcon actually roosted on the structure during the evening. Although in recent years we don't know where the Gyrfalcon actually roosts. She leaves the building close to sundown and we don't see her again until the next day. They arrive in around the second week of November. In fact, this year it was November 8th, 2015, and it was also November 8th in 2014, according to my records.
Yeah, it's not unusual to see Gyrfalcons in Alberta and at latitudes like Edmonton, but in the past we certainly didn't have congregations or concentrations of birds like we do with wintering waterfowl or the large numbers of pigeons that we have in the cities. 30, 40 years ago we didn't have that, and certainly Gyrs didn't stay around them or concentrate their predation on those sites. So whether it's the open water at Lake Wampum, the birds, the mallard ducks that are overwintering on the North Saskatchewan River, or these concentrations of pigeons, those are fairly new prey sources, and it's quite unusual, or it's a new thing that they're exploiting. So it's not something we're used to, that's for sure. We have an expert here in Edmonton, Dick Decker, who spent his lifetime looking at success rates of hunting in large falcons. And he's been able to work this bird and work prairie falcons that are here, and also local peregrines as well. And this is really quite an unusual way for a Gyrfalcon to hunt. It actually, he calls it a pendulum sort of hunting, where the flock moves back and forth, tries to get back to the building, and the Gyr will either go under it and fire up through it or fire down through it. It's not a typical way for Gyrfalcons to hunt. Normally, a Gyr locks onto something like a missile lock and flies it right out of the sky and pursues it over many kilometers before it pulls something down. This is quite unusual and not particularly efficient. About a success rate of about 10%, a little bit more than 10% for this type of hunting, whereas it might go up higher for other prey species. Certainly the ducks east of town, adult Gyrfalcons were taking about a bird every, say 30% of the time. So not a very efficient way of doing it, but it's certainly an easy thing for them to do, because as you can see, they just have to do 10 tries and they'll get themselves a pigeon.
And of course, a lot of people, they ask the obvious question, why don't the pigeons just go somewhere else? Why don't they hide when the falcon is there? Why don't they go in the open windows of the building or hide behind all the pipes and funnels and things? And I don't know the answer. I think it's because they're pigeons. Nothing against pigeons, but they're pigeons.
one of the nice things about this sort of thing is you get to see the birds up close. We're actually able to, some of these photographers piece together their digital photographs, and are actually able to get the band number off the birds. This particular adult female was banded several years ago as a juvenile here, and that sort of reminds you that the more and more we learn about Gyrfalcons on the wintering grounds, the more the neater patterns that we're seeing. We're seeing that it's almost entirely females that we get down here, and must be something on the breeding grounds that is friendlier for the males to stay on the breeding grounds during the winter. But almost all Gyrfalcons that we see in Alberta and in the northern Great Plains every year are going to be female. Juveniles or adults are going to be female. So I'd say it's about 90% of the birds that you're going to see in any given winter are going to be female birds. The prairie falcons are responding, and maybe well be climate change. Prairie falcons at the southern parts of the province will winter on their territories or close to their territories, but we're seeing that bird moving further north all the time. It now breeds on the North Saskatchewan River on the cliffs that used to be occupied by peregrine falcons. We have records now from the Pembina River, the Peace River, and even the Athabasca River. So the bird is moving north for sure. We used to think that they didn't stand much of a chance of having a good reproductive year if they didn't have ground squirrels, but they can make a living on more than just ground squirrels. And we even have a pair that nests within the city limits of Edmonton now, which is a real turnaround. Again, it's at an old peregrine site, but things have changed for them and they're moving north.
When you think about it, we have the prey species, pigeons, and then we have, of course, the predators. We have the gyr, we have the prairie falcon, and then this year a peregrine, which was really cool. But we also have merlins, which don't often attack the pigeons, but I have seen them attack the pigeons in vain, but they've attacked them. And then, of course, we have eagles coming through, although they may be more rightly considered as part of the scavenger group, along with the magpies and ravens. So, in general terms, we have these three groups all interacting. And so over the years, I've seen the Gyrfalcon, of course, interact with pigeons, but also other Gyrfalcons. If another gyr comes in, while the dominant gyr is there, she'll chase it away. I've seen her chase both adults and juvenile gyrs away. I've also seen her drive off the prairie falcon. I've also seen her attack the peregrine falcon. And when I say attack, there's no real contact made. It's not some kind of death struggle, but it's definitely about dominance. She certainly shows them who's boss. I've never seen her actually strike another predator. When the prairie falcon comes in, if she catches a pigeon and there's ravens about, there's a huge fight with the ravens over the pigeons. So I've seen that kind of interaction as well. And then among the scavenger birds, I was watching, this was just this month, I watched the magpie take on the merlin, drive it off, and then I watched the magpie take on the gyr. Well, not take her on so much, but buzz her as the gyr was perched on her antenna perch. Yeah, the ravens, I suppose, are considered scavengers, mainly ground feeders, but at this location, I've actually seen the ravens try to capture the pigeons either in midair, which they're not very successful at, although on one occasion I did see 3 ravens manage to drag a pigeon down from the air. I've also seen the ravens perch innocently by the pigeons and then hop over in a sideways step, grab one and muscle it down to the ground. The Gyrfalcon, the one we know as Notchtail now, the last time I saw it was on March 24th. I was standing here and I watched her do something I'd never seen before. She left her perch, it was about midday, and started spiraling up, gaining altitude until she was just a tiny dot in the sky, could barely see her, and then she just headed straight north. And after that, I didn't see her again until the next November, and neither did anybody else that I've been talking to. So it looks like November, second week of November to mid-March seems to be the time.
So of course there's no guarantee that this incredible bird watching opportunity is going to be here in perpetuity. So if you've ever wanted to really get to know these big falcons well, this is a great place to do it. I encourage you to come and pay us a visit. If not, if that's just not in the cards for you, well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.